Wisconsin. Check out the latest numbers in the Democratic primary there for governor. Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley locked in a nail-biter of a race. This one could not be any closer. Less than 4,000 votes separating the two. A lot of attention, a lot of money spent here to take on Republican Tom Tiffany in November. In South Carolina, the special Republican Senate primary will go to a runoff after no candidate got over 50% of the vote. CNN projects that Darlene Graham, the sister of late Senator Lindsey Graham, and Congressman Ralph Norman will compete in that runoff in 2 weeks.
I want to thank the Republican voters of South Carolina for having confidence in me. I look forward to the next 2 weeks, meeting with you, listening to your concerns, and telling you more about me and my conservative values.
CNN is also tracking primaries in Vermont, Connecticut, Alabama, and Minnesota. We'll bring you updates on those races throughout the next 3 hours here on The Story Is. Let's drill down on the Wisconsin governor's race. You know that it's a big night when John King is up after midnight Eastern. And John, your magic wall is still doing its thing.
The batteries are still working, Elex. Let's hope they last a few more minutes in the magic wall. Look, we're up late because we have another very evenly divided race in these Democratic primaries. Last time we spoke, it was Michigan, the Senate primary there. A similar story playing out here in Wisconsin tonight. This is a governor's primary for the Democratic nomination. You have a progressive candidate, Francesca Hong, a Democratic socialist, against a more establishment candidate, David Crowley, the Milwaukee County executive, has the backing of the current governor, Democratic governor, and you have a very close race. As you noted, this is 40% to, if you round that up, 40%, 3,365 votes. That is tight. I have to tell you, given the way this race has been in the last couple hours, that's actually the most comfortable lead any candidate has had in the last couple of hours, where this race has been 300 votes, 200 votes, 1,000 votes, and swinging back and forth. So we're at 87%, and so the question is, what's left out there to count, right? Does that hold? Here's one way to look at that. We look here at the live outstanding votes. What we know is still out. I'll move the map just a little bit so you can see it. The larger the circle means the more votes still to be counted in that location. So I want to move this up a little bit. I'm just seeing the banners on the screen there, so I want to move this up so you can see it. So you see a lot of votes still in Milwaukee, where Crowley is leading right now. No guarantee the rest of the votes will come his way, but that's a good sign if you're in Crowley headquarters. You see the big circle here? That's Dane County. That's Madison, the University of Wisconsin, the most progressive liberal county in the state where Francesca Hong is from. That's her base. To the naked eye, you see more light blue, which would suggest to you that if the votes that are still out come in the same way as the votes in those places already counted, a slight advantage to Mr. Crowley to the naked eye. I can move this back a little bit now and pop out as you look at it. One other factor, Elex, as we go through this, and then ask me anything you want if you have the time, or move on to your great panel. You're looking at how close this is again, 40 to 40. So one of the questions is, why doesn't that add up to 100? Well, we've had a number of candidates in this race. Several have dropped out. There are a couple of lesser candidates still on the ballot. So as we watch this race play out, and we're watching it, we have to remember this. So we have a very close race, and guess what? About 21% of the vote, a little less than that, 20% of the vote is going to other candidates. And if you mailed in your ballot early, in some states, like in Michigan, when Mallory McMorrow dropped out, if you had cast a ballot for her, Michigan allows you to quote-unquote spoil it. You go up to election officials and you say, I want to cancel my mail-in ballot and take it back. Wisconsin does not allow that. So when some of these other candidates who dropped out, if you had sent a ballot in the mail for them or showed up and dropped off in a drop box an early ballot for them, in Wisconsin you can't change your mind. That will be impossible to figure out how those people would have voted otherwise. But that is definitely a factor tonight when you think of all those votes cast for other candidates when you have a race that is this close, now at 87%. Still some votes to count. Again, in the last few hours, that's a big lead, but in a big state like Wisconsin, 3,400 votes is not a lot.
Well, and when we were talking during the Michigan race last week, Haley Stevens was overperforming the late polls against Abdul El Sayed. The late polls had showed Francesca Hong up pretty easily. I mean, David Crowley seems to be outperforming them, right?
I think, look, there have been questions for the last decade about polling, ever since more people on cell phones and other things. The Trump dynamic has had a part in that. I think that one of the issues pollsters still have is reaching out to black voters. Number one, getting them to trust the system, working class voters. I know you have Mr. Brownstein on your panel. He understands this issue even better than I do. The polling industry has become a question mark, even though the people who do it are very good people. They're data scientists and they know what they're doing. But there's no question that every cycle there's been a question of, what are we missing? What are the pollsters missing here? And I do think after what happened in Michigan and now you get to Wisconsin, that's certainly being a conversation going forward. The big issue is, who is your candidate going to be? Is that candidate going to hold this state in November if you're the Democrat? But there's no question that as we watch this fight play out in the Democratic Party, the data is a piece of it in terms of there were people who tuned in tonight thinking that was going to be a blowout, just like there were people who tuned in Michigan thinking it was going to be a big race. That's not what we're seeing. I mean, the Democratic voters will settle this, and we'll see if, just like in Michigan, someone's going to win here by a very narrow margin, just like happened in Michigan. The question is, do the wounds heal quickly, and can you move on to November? But when you say there's a divide in the Democratic Party, those numbers tell you it's right there, right in the middle.
It is right there, and just like we saw in Michigan, it could not be closer. It's going to be fascinating to watch those numbers come in over the next few hours. John King, honored to have you be a part of our show here on The Story Is. Thank you. Now to another legend in politics. CNN's Jeff Zeleny, live for us in Madison, Wisconsin, at Francesca Hong's watch party. How are those numbers translating there, and are people there surprised, Jeff?
Alex, there is no doubt that there is significant surprise here. We are at the Atwood Music Hall in Madison. There are still a significant number of people here, as you can see, but the crowd has thinned considerably. The reality is they were led to believe, supporters hoped that this would be an early night. Like Michigan, that this would be an early progressive victory. That has not happened. And for all the reasons John was talking about, yes, polling certainly was interesting, but there was also a big share of undecided voters heading into the final stage of this race. And the undecided voters, without question, at least talking to many Democratic officials, broke toward David Crowley. I mean, Governor Tony Evers was making the explicit argument here as he traveled across the state with David Crowley that Democrats needed to pay attention to electability in the fall. They really tried to win over those undecided voters, but also the other voters, or the other candidates that John was talking about, very significant in Wisconsin, and here is why. Up until just a couple weeks ago, there was an entirely bigger slate of candidates. Sarah Rodriguez, the current lieutenant governor, was in the race. The former lieutenant governor, Mandela Barnes, was in the race. They both dropped out in the recent weeks for various reasons, but they still had their names on the ballot. And a lot of people who voted by mail voted for them, and that adds up to more than 50,000 votes. There's another candidate right here in Madison, Kelda Roy. She is a state legislator, a progressive state legislator. She also has more than 50,000 votes. So when you add those up, it is more understandable to why this is such a nail-biter between Francesca Hong and David Crowley. David Crowley is up, as John was just saying there, by about 3,000 votes or so. It's gone back and forth a bit, but Francesca Hong has only been in the lead about one time. So what is left? Madison, Dane County, right here, where Francesca Hong is from. She's performing well here, but she is still narrowly behind statewide. So the outstanding vote in Milwaukee, the advisors from both campaigns tell me they have their eye on that, as well as the vote here in Madison and Dane County. But the bottom line here is, for all the suggestions that this would be a huge progressive show of support, that has not happened. This is a divided Democratic Party, and it really reflects the conversations I had with voters all day long, Alex, who even some of the most liberal voters, they acknowledged, look, we live in Madison, we are left-leaning liberal voters. They were concerned about the electability of Francesca Hong. Alex?
Yeah, it's been remarkable to see those conversations you've had with voters over the last few days. Jeff, stay with us. We don't know if and when Francesca Hong will come out and speak, but if she does, we will bring that to you live. Great to have you part of our conversation, Jeff. Now let's bring in our panel. As we mentioned, Ron Brownstein is senior political analyst, opinion columnist with Bloomberg. Democrat Katie Porter served in the United States House and ran for governor and senator here in California. And Matt Klink is a Republican strategist, as well as the owner and president of Klink Campaigns. Welcome back. We were all together last week. It was so much fun. We said, let's bring the group back together again. Ron, as our senior analyst, let's start with you. The big thing standing out to you so far.
Second verse, same as the first. I mean, very similar to the story in Michigan last week. I mean, it is the encapsulation of the Democratic Party that is very closely divided and is dividing along familiar lines in these races, one after another. Last week in Michigan, we saw El Sayed run better with young voters, college-educated voters. Haley Stevens run best with non-college voters and older voters. Preliminary analysis again, and black voters. This preliminary analysis again in Wisconsin, same sort of story where Crowley is running better in precincts with older voters, black voters, and Hong is doing best with younger and college-educated. This is a Democratic Party that is very closely divided, and this is, I think, an embodiment of that. But it matters a lot who wins this nomination because they are very different general election candidates. One thing to note, though, 50% more votes, at least, in the Democratic primary than the Republican primary tonight. So whichever one wins, you still have that imbalance of intensity.
You know, Congresswoman Francesca Hong has gotten a lot of attention over the last week for some of the things that some would say are more extremist that she said. They've been all over the news, not only in Wisconsin, but nationally as well. It seems like that may have had an impact.
It might have, but I think I actually don't see this as similar to Michigan. So it's interesting that you started there, because I think what we saw in Michigan was very intense enthusiasm for two really strong, skillful candidates. And I think here, one of the things you can see is that fully 20% of people didn't like either of these two. Pretty late in the game.
Or voted while the other ones are still in the race.
That's right. But I mean, these weren't the top two choices for 20%.
Well, and Crowley dropped out of the race at one point.
That's right.
And then everybody else dropped out, and he said, I guess I'll try.
The resurrection,
and right now he's winning.
So I think that is quite different. I think there's no doubt that Francesca is kind of trying to play the Abdul routine, like become a national hero, try to fundraise off it. I don't think that's going to help her win tonight in Wisconsin, and I don't think it's going to help her win in the general election.
Meaning you think that she's not a very strong general election candidate?
I think she's certainly not been heading in the right direction. I think we saw Abdul toward the end of his campaign get more savvy about what the general election would require of him, and I think we've seen her do the opposite.
Yeah, meaning
running against Thanksgiving.
Running against Thanksgiving and July 4th and Valentine's Day.
Well, I mean, I was personally accused of hating Christmas by luring voters, so it does go around.
Right.
So.
How do you see this? Because it seems like Republicans were really excited at the prospect of Francesca Hahn being the nominee.
The Republican Governors Association was so excited they dropped $3.6 million into the race for Francesca Hahn because they want to run against her. So she's clearly she's a much weaker candidate. I think that it's interesting here. You have the incumbent Democratic governor who's not seeking re-election, Tony Evers, coming out and really being very divisive in his statements about who will make a better general election candidate. That didn't happen in Michigan. So, I mean,
Whitmer did endorse. I mean, Whitmer
just didn't win.
late. It was late, and she did. Look,
but
he's campaigning for.
There were a lot of people.
The core similarity between Michigan and Wisconsin is the nature of the coalition on each side. And you know, we used to talk about the wine track and the beer track in Democratic presidential primaries. It's sort of scrambled a little at the presidential level, but these races are classic throwbacks. It's like the Democratic DNA is kind of unraveling, and you see kind of that modern party of young voters and college-educated voters on one side, and then black voters, non-college, and senior voters on the other. And in these states, you see week after week, it's almost exactly 50-50.
Well, and one other difference, Matt, is that Abdul El Sayed did not call himself a democratic socialist. Francesca Hahn does. And we have not seen a Democratic nominee in a major swing state who calls themselves a democratic socialist ever before.
Correct. And I mean, look, I think that her problem with that is if you're gonna wear it, wear it. She tried to wear it and then walk it back and equivocate, and then all you end up doing is pissing off people on both sides. I mean, be true to yourself. If you're going to run as a socialist, run as a socialist and be unapologetic about it. At least you're enthusiastic about something. But the people who don't like her are never going to change their mind, and the people who support her are like, wait, she's backtracking on this, which is attractive to me. So I think it shows, as you said, Katie, she got weaker as the campaign crescendoed to the final vote. and that really hurt.
To be honest, I don't think Crowley was ever strong. So I don't think this is, I think this is just really different, where I thought both Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens in Michigan ran really tough, really smart campaigns, great staffing, great advisors. This has been a little bit more of a hot mess.
But are people voting for Crowley, or are they voting against him?
No, they're voting against Hong. I mean, I think
so.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly just the vehicle. You know, look,
He's the other choice.
He's the other choice. You got a state where Donald Trump's disapproval, again, like in Michigan, is close to 60%. It's not complicated to win this as a Democrat this year. You only have to win somewhere between 80 and 85% of people who disapprove of Trump. Democratic voters, at least half of them, are saying, we just want someone who will do that, not someone who is promising a revolution.
How important is that word socialist, democratic socialist?
I mean, this has been thrown at every Democrat, from the most moderate to actual socialist, in the time I've been in politics. And I think it still carries a level of toxicity for older voters in particular. And maybe to your point, for working class voters or voters with less education. I think on the part of college educated voters, on the part of young people, they have a completely different understanding of what that word means. They think it means that a government that will stand up to corporate power. That's what democratic socialism means.
And they also did not grow up with the USSR.
Yeah, there was no Cold
right?
War.
There was no Cold War. Communism was not a thing. They weren't hiding under the desks for Soviet
cover.
that sort of thing.
But by the way, let's not lose sight of the fact that the left single-payer Bernie-style candidate is winning by 20 points tonight in the Senate primary in Minnesota, and it continues the pattern. I mean, each side in this has won significant races along the way. There's been no knockout. I mean, this is kind of a 15-round on-points fight between the left and center in the Democratic primary this year, and it really kind of foreshadows what we may see in 2028. Absolutely.
And of course, we saw that in 2016 with Hillary versus Bernie, and we saw it again in 2020 as well with Biden versus Bernie.
And I'm going to say, I think each of these states split between Bernie one year, Michigan and Wisconsin. Bernie won them once and didn't win them again. And so there's these are real battlegrounds.
You guys are sticking with us. We will talk about what's happening in Minnesota. We'll talk about what happened in South Carolina tonight. Also, a really interesting congressional race in Connecticut to talk about as well when you guys are back with us as we continue to follow election results from Wisconsin. We keep getting more and more numbers coming in between Crowley and Hong. We will keep updating those numbers next. And also, we want to get to some important news. CNN learning more about how the Secret Service moved President Trump off of Air Force One and into another aircraft in Turkey without anyone else noticing. We have details on that, plus an update on the earthquake that we are following in Columbia. Stay with us.
Have I got news for you?